I just want to, when you walked in the door today, you had a beautiful magazine on your seat. I just want to thank Joshua Green. You've been amazing. When I first started in 2017, nobody knew who I was. I called you and said, "Would you like to be my media sponsor?" And you said yes right away. And you've been an amazing partner since very day one. And I just want to thank you for this. Everyone who purchased the ticket, you are going to get a year subscription. It's a hard word to say in English. A year subscription, digital version. So this is the paper version, but you will get a full year online. Amazing content. And Joshua has always been at the forefront of climate change and was writing about it when nobody was. So again, thank you, thank you so much for your support. So I know that you just had wine, sugar, a bit of coffee. Chances are you might be sleepy. So we're going to keep this dynamic by having panel this afternoon. So I would like to invite my panel, Olivier, Sebe, Matthieu Beauchemin, and Fabrizio, Battista. So I just, with climate change, we all know that disease pressure is increasing, all sorts of diseases, but it seems like in the past when we talked about fungal diseases, it was mainly if you were living in an area where it's humid, rainy, we talked about fungal diseases. Now it feels like regions that you haven't seen before are struggling for fungal diseases. I was in Gigondas in July. It got to 50 degrees Celsius. Just before that, by the time I got there, just before it had the heat wave, they had mildew on Grenache, which had never seen that before. Marc Picon, who's going to be on panel tomorrow from Sumaroka. When I wrote my book, I called him and we're talking about a lot of different things. And he said, you know, in 2020, I lost a huge part of my crop to fungal diseases. So there's a really interesting research happening right now at Geisenheim University. If you Google it, it's called FACE, FACE, and they have put vines, Cabernet Sauvignon and Riesling, in an area, like in an environment where it's elevated CO2. Because what we're trying to understand is how the CO2 in the atmosphere is affecting fungal diseases. And they have found so far, and it'll be interesting to follow this study over the years, and I hope that they will be able to make it here one day, but they're finding that the stomata of the vine is open a bit longer, and it's actually contributing to more fungal diseases. So it's no just it's no matter it's no longer a matter of are you in a humid or rainy area. There's another parameter now that we're finding, that's CO2 emission. So I thought it was important to discuss fungal diseases. And Matthieu Beauchemin, you own Domaine du Nival in Quebec on the shore of Yamaska. And you've made the very courageous decision to be organic, because we know that it's easier in some parts of the world than others to make that decision. We don't like rain here in Quebec. I think this past year was a very, very good example of this. We were lots of rain, lots of people treating the vines, and I want to start asking you, how are you dealing with all of this in a way that can still be sustainable for you, for your employees, and also for the land?
You're right, Michelle. We're in a relatively wet, humid climate, and last year was particularly bad. Just to give you a rough, and I'll talk a little bit more about what we did and who we are, but just to set the stage, we at our vineyard we received 400 millimeters of rain, let's say between flowering and veraison last year, which is a huge amount, especially 90 millimeters of rain in 3 hours right in the middle of flowering. So a very complicated year. we're a small vineyard located about an hour outside of Montreal, heading towards Quebec City. It's 3 hectares under vines, mostly vinifera, so Pinot Noir, a little bit of Albarino, Gamaret, which is a Swiss variety. It's one of the earliest selections that were in the let's say recent selections for hybrids. Was one of the earliest selections that were made in the 70s, and especially selected because it's resistant to botrytis. And we can talk about this, and I know Olivier is going to be discussing disease-resistant varieties later. A little bit of Gamaret and Vidal also, which is an older hybrid from the sort of post-phylloxera period. As you said, we're organic. We've been certified for about 5 years, and the vineyard is about 12 years old. So we've always been working in sort of an organic fashion, even before being certified, but we're certified. We've been certified for 5 years. And right around the time when we got certified, that's when I realized that despite being tight on my spray schedule, and despite doing everything that textbooks say that you should do to avoid, especially in our case, it's downy mildew that's the biggest issue. Despite doing everything correctly and being covered before every rain with copper and so on, we just weren't able to overcome a sort of yearly downy mildew problem, which wasn't causing tremendous amount of damage. But I was like, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way. I mean, you can grow organic grapes. People do it in wet climates. There's got to be a better way. And you know, we were using copper, we were using sulfur, we were using horsetail extracts, essential oils, you know, name it, just a bit of everything. And that's one of the difficult things also in Canada is we don't have access to a lot of organic certified fungicides or products. So if we compare, whenever I talk with fellow producers in Europe, they're like, oh, we use this and this and that. I'm like, yeah, we don't have any of that. So we have to rely on very basic formulas of copper and sulfur. So right around when we got certified, I was like, there has to be something else that we're doing incorrectly. And that's when we started working a lot on creating conditions that were less favorable to diseases. And that's been the way we made it through that downy mildew pressure. We realized that we were planted in a site, yes, with susceptible varieties, but also a site that didn't have very good airflow. And, you know, in Europe, you hear a lot people saying, let's plant trees, let's plant bushes, let's, you know, around the vines. And in our case, the first thing we did was cut trees around the property to create those wind corridors that would allow the vines to dry out. That was the first thing, and then clearing bushes and so on. And it really...
I'm sorry, I just want to stop you 2 seconds, but the picture we've been using for this year's promotion, it's actually Matthieu's vineyard. And so I just want to warn you, he's cut a few trees, but it's surrounded by trees. Like, it's not like he's cut the forest. I just want to be clear on that.
And especially, I mean, the winds here come from the west, so opening up those corridors for wind to come through the vineyard and dry the vines. And then the other thing we did is, because we're growing varieties that are susceptible to winter damage, we have to keep them very low to the ground to be able to cover them with geotextiles in winter. And that means that the fruit zone is typically very low, in the sort of 1 to 2 feet high, sort of 30, 60 centimeters high. And that's very conducive to having a lot of disease pressure, because you're close to the ground. We're working with cover crops. It stays a little bit more humid. It doesn't dry out as easily. But it's difficult to rise that zone because you need to cover the vines in winter. So we ended up shifting and trying, and then shifting our pruning system to a sort of modified double guyot, where we prune to very long canes that we bring down. So the trunk is really tiny, but we bring the canes down to the ground in the fall to be able to cover them with geotextiles. And they're long canes. They're canes that have like 15, 16, 17 buds. And in the spring, we'll lift them up and we raise them to about 60 centimeters. So the fruit zone is even a little bit higher than that. And we remove some of the shoots that are on the so on buds number, let's say 1 to 7, and that's getting very technical, but removing those shoots means that we're lifting the canopy higher up, increasing airflow around the base of the vines. That has also allowed us to increase our yields, and by increasing our yields, managing vegetative growth better and reducing our canopy size, which reduce the disease pressure. So it's very, and then you come with copper, and then you come with those extracts, and then you come with essential oils, and you manage. But those products themselves are not enough if you don't do the rest correctly. So that's been, one of the major solutions for us. We do grow certain varieties that are less susceptible to diseases, namely gamma ray, which is completely resistant to botrytis, and that's really helpful in climates like Quebec. So we're edging our risks by having stuff like Pinot Noir, but having other varieties that are less susceptible to botrytis. We also grow Divico, which is another Swiss, it's an offspring of gamma ray. It's a cross between gamma ray and Brona, which is technically supposed to be resistant to mildew. And I won't go too far into that, but it's a monogenic resistant variety. And I've checked that because we had a discussion about that yesterday. It's a monogenic resistant variety, which means that it is still slightly susceptible to mildew. And we found that in our conditions, it does get mildew every year. So this is the birthplace of mildew. Northeastern North America is the birthplace of downy mildew. It comes from here. So it's if it's going to catch mildew somewhere, it's going to catch it here. So that sort of covers what some of the avenues that we've looked at in terms of working with our varieties in a wetter climate, more humid climate. And I don't have the time, so I don't know how I'm doing.
That's okay. Time. I'm going to prompt you with another question.
Wonderful.
So quickly, 2 things. I want to know, by doing all of this year was a good trial, accumulation of so many things you've put in place. So how did you do in a year like 2023?
It was a good test, and we did one thing this year. I was like, now that we manage better for diseases, it's fine. We know our way. We know we can make it work. Let's try one block with no copper this year, and then it got really rainy, and we did it with a block of gamma ray, which is already less susceptible to mildew than Pinot or Vidal. And then it was not just let's not put copper. We used a variety of oils and extracts. We used some, and you're going to get into that, but some different types of bacillus based products, different types of bacteria that can, and fungal extracts and so on that can help. So they're defense elicitor for the vine, so the vine gets prepared and can better defend itself. And we did all that, and it was a catastrophe.
Okay.
And we ended up bringing the copper back and trying to salvage was what was there. But it was a good year to try it out, and it was also a confirmation that when we do our normal spray program, and which stays within the reasonable limits of copper that Marc-André was talking about before. And when we do that and we work well and we've done all the stuff we need to do to increase airflow and so on, it works because we had another block of gamma ray that gave us a really good crop this year. So it's a question of doing all the little things right, including using some copper, some fungicide, well placed, understanding the models of how mildew infections happen and how they propagate, and doing it at the right time with the right product, not too much, not too little, and understanding that and mastering your site and your environment. And then one of the last things that we had talked about also was understanding also that sustainably managing diseases doesn't mean having no diseases. And we need to understand that, and it doesn't mean having a 40% yield reduction either, okay? But it means that you need to understand your site to say, this is fine, we'll get through it. There'll be a little bit of mildew. I might lose 5%, but I know it looks like 5 years ago was a bit like that. We had that sort of pressure. I'm looking at the weather. I know what I know where we're at in terms of resistance of our bunches or our berries, and I think we can get through it. And sometimes we mess up, but most of the times with experience, we can make it through, and that's what's really sustainable. Because aiming for zero disease, like it was typically the case, especially in conventional farming, that's not sustainable.
I have so many more questions for you, but we'll go to Fabrizio. We'll come back, okay? Because I won't have a group discussion. Fabrizio, Battista, I'm so happy. I've met Fabrizio in Austria at a conference where we're talking about all the work that he's doing to find solution for producers for many different things, but particularly fungal diseases. Fabrizio he works as a project leader of viticulture application in the research and development at Lallemand. And Lallemand, of course, has done a lot of great study, and you have found a way to use products that are used in organic viticulture that people can apply. And so you're going to have a few complicated slides for us, but you're going to help us to go through it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you could share your research and what you found and how it worked.
Okay. So thank you, Michelle.
That's
So,
it.
good afternoon, everybody. No, so as Michelle mentioned, I work for Lallemand Oenology. So we are really expert in microbiology. So we try to bring our expertise as microbiologists in viticulture side. So this is our main goal with a project that started almost 18 years ago, almost, yeah, 18, yeah. And so our goal, as always, is to work in the vineyard, but with the final goal to have an impact on the wine quality, for sure, on the grape, on the grape health, but as well, on to have something that could be useful for the winemaking industry. So for sure, to have a nice grape that could be not fermented because of the residual, for example, is not our goal. So I think it's not the goal of anybody here in that room. But by the way, so with our expertise, we started developing natural solution to be applied in the viticulture field. So we arrived to have two different, let's say, big branch of solution now, biostimulant solution and biocontrol solution. So today, for sure, I'm going to be focused a little bit more in the biocontrol solution as the theme of the talk is fungal disease. But for sure, as Matthieu mentioned, a plant that is we have to take care of the global wellness of the plant. So for sure, biostimulant solution, even if their main goal is not the health of the grape, but are helping anyway to have a better health grape. Because in our case, we just give you a short information about the biostimulant solution that I think could be really useful for Canadian, for example, grape grower, because we have solution that enhance the phenolic maturity and the aroma complexity, but at the same time have helping the skin thickness of the berry. So for sure, the main goal of those applications is to enhance the phenolic, that we know that phenolic and aromatic compound have an antifungal action as well. So moreover, we saw that impact on the skin thickness. So again, it's not just stimulating the secondary metabolism of the plant, but as well helping a little bit the defense of the plant. Then we had other solution that could help in the extreme climatic condition, like is not here the case, but with the water stress, we have solution that help the plant to manage the osmotic potential inside of the plant. So all those solutions are based mainly in specific inactivated yeast. So to go a little bit forward with the biological solution that we have today, we recently developed a ketosane, 100% ketosane, so a pure ketosane. So of course, of fungal origin, because we are microbiologists, so we work with this tool from Aspergillus niger. So able to control botrytis and so rot or acetic rot, you call here. For sure, just to answer Matthew, we saw encouraging data for mildew, especially downy mildew, but yeah, it's not the right moment now because we don't have enough, we have to be really, really transparent. So at the moment we are working on, but at the same time we are not ready to. So, but we got really positive results from, because last year in Italy was really a really wet season. So maybe if you can put a slide, yeah, I will just. I prepare just 2 slides, so not too much, Michel. So yeah, I just make a comparison of these our chitosan. So Lalvinia botrytis is the commercial name of our specific chitosan, and some other chitosan that are from other sources, some from crustaceous source. So here is a trial run by the University of Salamanca just to see the different impact. So we talk about chitosan, but there are different sources of chitosans and with different characteristics. And what we really realized is that a chitosan extract from a fungi have an antifungal activity that is much higher compared with with the other extract from for example from shrimps or generally crustaceous. So in this case you can see the blue bar is the crustaceous one, and the orange bar is the Lalvinia botrytis. So, and higher is the bar. It means that is the inhibition of the development of the botrytis in this case. And each column in this case represent a different isolate of botrytis, because in our vineyard there is not just one strain of botrytis. There are many. There were many researchers working on that. So now we know that there are many. So we tested the most aggressive and the most common, for sure, not all of them, but we tested several of them, and we saw that there is a consistency in the effectiveness of this product. I'm moving a little bit more forward because that one was a lab trial. And here we have some data from field trial in real life. So the first one is 2019 in Spain in a Bobal variety, which is a really compact with a really thin skin, let's say, so quite sensitive to botrytis. Here you can see was done just one application at variation with Lalvinia botrytis compared with a control without any treatment, and as well compare with a conventional product used for the botrytis. So, and we saw that there is a big impact on the bunch affected by the botrytis, and as well in the intensity of that damage. Moreover, as we are Lallemand Oenology, we look at the gluconic acid content, and we observed that there is a huge decrease in the gluconic acid. So it means that really the infection was lower in the treated bunch compared with the other. Then I'm moving to an Italian trial in 2022 that was a really dry year, so without rainfall from May to September. And and there was no botrytis at all.
It's at the wrong time, right?
Yeah. But by the way, we were testing it, but we observed something interesting as well in this case, because in this case we saw that the acetic sour, the acetic rot started to be developed, because in this case is a Sauvignon Blanc variety that all of us know quite well. And in this case, we saw that the treatment with Lalvinia botrytis is decreasing as well the percentage of the berry and of the bunch affected by the sour rot. So it's really interesting, because we know that the chitosan from our specific chitosan have an action against botrytis, and we know that it is having an action against the Acetobacter. So Acetobacter is the main bacteria involved in the acetic sour. In this case, we can see we apply 3 treatment in the normal thesis, and in another thesis we apply just 1 treatment at the double dosage, just to see the difference. And we saw that for sure having an approach more preventive is having a better result, but we observed that even with just 1 application, we got a positive impact, a statistically significant impact decrease in the disease. Here is the last year, 2023, completely different compared with the 22. So we're really, really wet, like probably, yeah, was really extreme here because we had a lot of rainfall during the spring, during the flowering. Then there was a little pause in the middle in August, and then start again at the end of August. So the whole September was rainy. And we had a lot of problem of botrytis all around Italy, for sure, as well problem of downy mildew. But in this case, in this trial, we were evaluating the incidence of the botrytis. Again, 3 applications at 100 grams per hectoliter each one, from the bunch closure to the variation. And again, we observed with this high pressure, we observe really a dramatic decrease with the treatment. So from the 25% of bunch affected in the control, we passed to have 12% more or less of bunch affected. And as well the severity, so it means the number of berry inside of any bunch affected is really lower with the treatment. So again, we observe a really good impact. And I told you, in 2023, we ran trial as well on the downy mildew with really positive impact for night pressure here, like it was this year. So,
but just to be clear, Fabrizio, because you're talking about trials and research, but this product is already available for producer.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
product, the L'Alvigne Botrytis, is already available in Europe. From this year is admitted inorganic in Europe.
And Lallemand is based here in Montreal.
And it's not allowed. But I'm just curious, and I want to go back to you. But Matthieu, when you're listening to this, are you thinking, oh my God, I would like to be able to use that?
Yeah, but there's absolutely, and it goes to my point that it's, and of course, I mean, the main market is in Europe because grape growing, it happens in Europe first and foremost. But yeah, it's great when we have access to those kinds of products. That, yeah.
What I can say that just some of the other applications based on inactivated yeast, we have 2 applications. The one of the skin thickness that is already authorized in Canada as well. So is L'Alvigne Mature and L'Alvigne Aroma. They are already authorized here, and for sure we are working on the authorization as well here in North America. Yeah.
You're talking about trials on Sauvignon Blanc and Bobal, but I'm curious to see, like if you took like Pinot Noir and other type of grapes, have you found that this product works better on specific grapes, or you kind of finding the same result regardless of the grape?
I mean, we know that there are grapes more sensitive and grape less sensitive. For sure, we are not. Yeah, when we don't make trial with grapes that normally doesn't have any problem of botrytis. So for sure, for us, Cabernet Sauvignon is not a sensitive variety as well. Yes, talking about more international. Yeah, the Sangiovese, for example, is sensitive to botrytis. So we observed a positive impact. So here I just show few results that we have with statistics, with university or institute involved, but we have many other results with other variety, and the product is effective. For sure, you can see a positive impact when there is the disease, because other ways you cannot see the benefit, because finally is to use the product is general that, but you have to use when it's needed, because we try to decrease our carbon footprint, and so if it's needed, we have the solution. This is the goal.
So 2023 was a good year in Italy to try to make sure those products were working, right?
I mean, it was not a good year, but yeah, it was a good year just for the trial. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll come back to a discussion, but I want to go to the next panelists, Olivier, Sebe, who's made the decision, I'm not going to use any product, I don't want to use any copper. You're located in the south of France, you're owner of Domaine de la Clausade, and you have planted exclusively hybrids. And Matthieu was talking about monogenic, and I know you'll explain that, the difference between monogenic, which is the first wave of hybrid, versus polygenic, that resist to multiple disease. And that's what you have planted. So your entire vineyard is planted with hybrids. So curious to hear what the results are so far, and from a botrytis point of view, but also from a taste point of view.
Okay, I am very glad to be here.
Maybe-
You will see that my English is very bad, so you can smile and try to understand what I will try to explain to you. We bought the property La Clausade in 2017. It's 45 acres situated in the south of France. First, there were cereals on it, and we try to change that, and we want to have beans. So for that, I hired a celebrity enologist in our country whose name is Matthieu, and we decided together to plant resistant grapes. So we have chosen together what we are going to plant. And first we selected, pardon, we selected white and gray grapes because the red one were not ready for us. So in resistant grapes, there is two different categories. Those who are monogenic and those who are polygenic. The difference means that some were crossed one time and other are crossed many times. So they have quite different results on it. We have 7 different disease-resistant grapes. We have some coming from Italy, name is Soli. Some coming from German, University of Fribourg. We have Sauvigny Gris and Muscaris. And some who has been created just down the road in Montpellier, within the INRA. We have Artaban, Vidocq, Floreal, and so we choose, like Matthieu, we have the same idea about what are the diseases and where they come from. So finally, we decide the sense of plantation for the wind. And after we choose the en français, excusez-moi, je cherche le mot en français aussi, ça va venir.
Ça va, on a dit ça, ça va.
Oui, non, on a décidé le principe de non-taille. La non-taille.
Minimal pruning.
Oh yeah, minimal pruning.
No pruning.
Yes. In Australia, they call this minimal pruning,
Yes,
which is no pruning.
minimum pruning.
Yes, yes, exactly.
And we choose this kind of conduct to permit we built the vine like a little tree, and like that we have nothing under 1 meter. So we avoid all the disease relative to le rebond de l'eau.
Water splashing.
Water slashing. And like that, we have a very good ventilation on the basis of the grapes. So we have no stagnation of humidity. We can just say that it's very easy for us because we are in a very dry region, and I am a little bit, j'ai un peu honte, comme on dit en français.
Shame, yeah, a bit shame.
Because Canadian has another climate, and it's more difficult for them.
It's funny because when you sent your note, Matthieu was reading them and he said, well, yeah, but I wonder how those would do in Quebec because we have so much rain. I don't know that they're going to work.
Yes, it's. I think our example is very simple for us, but not very simple for the others. So the result of both things, the resistant grapes and the way we conduct them, has a very good result for us. We don't make any treatment since 2019, but this year.
And you planted the vineyard in. Vous avez planté en 2017? En 2019.
En 2019.
Ouais, donc pas de traitement depuis.
Pas de traitement depuis. This year we will, because we have 2 hectare of Syrah, and we had disease on it, and we had disease on the monogenic cepage whose name is Sorely, who has got a lot of black rot. So next year we will make a treatment, but we don't want to use copper because I come from the sea. And it's forbidden, it's prohibited to have copper in the sea. So I don't understand why in the earth, in the soil, you can put copper. So we are organic wine. And for the 2023 season, we are in biodynamic. So we have levure indigène.
Indigenous yeast?
Yes, and we use the cycle of the moon for our practice. For those who don't know what biodynamics, it's like bûcheron.
I think people here in the room we're quite aware of that.
Yes, you know that? Okay. So the result of all of that was, and the good surprise of resistant grapes come from the organoleptic side. They are very aromatic, and we can with that make good blends. We are like a cooker who has got new ingredients and try to balance to put the best thing. Internationally speaking, these grapes are represented by Peewee Association. We were very proud to have a gold medal for our white wine with this association. But today, this morning, at 6 o'clock, a good news happened. We have in the Millésime Bio Salon, I don't know if you know that, it's a worldwide salon situated.
Millésime Bio, we know, yeah.
Yes, in Montpellier, we had the gold medal for our white once again. That's good news for us, but I think that's a good news for the planet, because that means that even in a country like France, who is very, 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 very difficult for change.
We did not know that.
Nobody know that. They give us a consecration, but it was blind test. So they don't know that was resistant grapes. It's why.
I have a quick question before we move on to the panel discussion, but you were mentioning the monogenic are in fact, they have no resistance. You have started to spray for the monogenic. Are you worried that with time, the polygenic, it will happen the same time? The same thing will happen because eventually the disease find a way back in. We had, at the last conference, I had a producer from Trentino Alto Adige, and he planted polygenic grapes many years ago. And for the first time last year, he started to spray now. Even the polygenic are losing their resistance. Did you consider that when you planted, or you felt even if it's a shorter life, it's better than doing that? I'm curious your thought process behind that.
I am sure it will a day have a containment with the disease. But when we don't know, and I think impossible is not French, and impossible is not resistant grapes. It will a day have a containment, but when we don't know, and like say Matthieu and we are very near to think that all you can do comes in a global environment, and you have to work your global environment to be able to fight with the disease. So it's a part of a general way, and you have to try to be the best in all the way, and like that we will manage.
I think it's a nice segue for a panel discussion to hybrids and the taste of it. You know, your wine was tasted blind. Some markets are more used to hybrids in Quebec. I think the sommelier, the trade accepts hybrids and they share that passion with consumer, but it's not the same in every market. How do we feel? And Matthieu, you work with hybrids. If they're not polygenic, you have hybrids, and how can we have an open mind and knowing, especially you were in your country where you have strict appellation, how can we move forward into planting what's best for a place? And I'm just curious to hear you on that.
I think, speaking of our experience here in Quebec, I think, and it's gone by waves. I mean, the hybrids now are in fashion, but talk to a lot of producers who were there 10 years ago, they would say it was way more difficult back then to market and sell hybrids in wines. And I think one of the ways that we managed to make hybrids more, and we were talking about that yesterday, like we still say, oh, disease like resistant varieties or hybrids, and in the end they're all different varieties.
And do we need to mention hybrid even?
Not necessarily.
Right?
I think in a professional context like we are, yes, maybe, but all in all, it doesn't really matter in the end. And I think one of the ways for the Quebec wine industry was to, eventually there were some vinifera's planted, and people said, okay, you make good vinifera's. And then they're like, let's take a look again at your hybrids. And then they're like, yeah, but those are good too. And everyone was like, yeah, we've told you before, but you weren't listening. So sometimes it's just finding a way for people to reconsider. And then we also had a lot of help from professionals, an endorsement from sommeliers, from journalists, from wine writers, and so on, that helped to reshape people's mind. And I think all that came together.
My idea is that the final product will give the response. If we are very good and we are not disputable of the test, we will know we will have no problem. But for that, we have to be better than others. It's just that. And that is difficult to be better. For me, it's difficult to be better than vineyards, and they are here for 40, 50, 60 years. We are just new, and we have to work a lot to be better.
And Matthieu, you're right, is when we talk amongst wine professionals, to say hybrids is one thing, but I don't think it's doing most consumers don't even know what hybrid is. And so when we go on and say, oh, this is hybrids, they're gonna wanna try it if we describe what the wine tastes like. I think it's a lot more helpful than, we don't say, hey, try this, it's a Vitis vinifera, right? So I think the language, we have a huge responsibility in the trade to change that language. I'm getting signs that we're going to have to take questions soon, so I want to continue with another question for you all. You all do different things. Matthieu, in history, you've gone through a bit of a roller coaster to get where you are. Fabrizio, you're working with different wineries and you're doing trials, and you all took a different path, and you're all doing different things to help fight fungal diseases. But How can we, not everyone gets to that place where, if you want to start somewhere and we're going to get more years like 2023, which is not easy, how can we start to be more sustainable financially and also reduce the amount of copper we're using? Because it's not like, if you did not plant hybrid now, you might start, I know Sumaroca, for example, is starting to plant hybrids to experiment, but you're not just going to pull out of your vineyard. And, if you're not organic quite yet and you're sustainable, so what can you do to get there and inspire people who are listening? Which path can you take? It was a very long-winded question. I'm not sure if it's clear.
But again, I can start and people can add, but I think each of us gave part of the answer or part of the answers, because I think there are many different paths. And I would say pick the one that speaks the most to you. So if planting new varieties speaks the most to you, go ahead. If working on your canopy management speaks to you the most, or using different products, those are all fine ways to get into that. And there's no miracle solution. And we were talking about polygenic resistant varieties that will eventually diseases are there, have been there, viruses. Marc-André was talking about viruses, they're everywhere and they'll be there beyond the human species. So, we're not going to win that fight. We're going to manage. And those are all ways to be able to manage and edge the risks.
Fabrizio, I can see you're nodding.
I totally agree with you. I think that to try to answer to your big questions, that could be really, really large. No, for sure, the knowledge is the answer to everyone, to everything in this. So we have to go deep with the knowledge, with the hybrid, go deep with the knowledge, with the canopy management, soil management, new product that could help go in that direction. So there is not just, as Matthieu already said, there is not just one solution that will save us. There are plenty of good practice, plenty of technical solution that for sure the science behind it will help to find new solutions that maybe today we don't even imagine, and maybe in 10 years are effective. So we have to keep studying this part and to try to get the good thing that we can see around, to test them, because I think it's important to test as we are producers. Many of you are producers, so it's important to test in your field to be convinced that the new solutions are working, because finally they are. Even if in some country there is some resistance to the innovation, let's say, but because France and Italy share this behavior, but when you start seeing that a solution is working, then the people can change their mind.
I think it goes back a little bit to what Etienne was presenting also, like having variety, edging your risks, basically. And if you put all your eggs in the same basket, that's when, if you have one vineyard in Burgundy growing 100% Pinot Noir, the same clone, the exact same way every year, you're not going to be resilient through climate change. But if you start having different varieties, some are more resistant than others, some are resistant to botrytis, some more to downy mildew, and then you use different techniques, and then you start having more variety, and that's how I think we can be resilient.
For my idea, a part of solution is discussion. Yes, when I begin in this work, I had the surprise to be very well accueilli.
Received?
Yes.
Well received?
Yes, and we talk a lot with all the system, and we were quite open. And with the discussion, we can understand that there is not a solution at the moment. There is only one solution at the moment for a person in a place. And we have to share all our experiences, and like that, and being open at the experiences of the other, and understand what could help you in their experience. If you do that, you progress very fast. And I think a day like today, I hope people think what we are saying is interesting, but we learn very much. And we open our mind on different solutions. And with that, we can manage with disease. And also, I think we have to accept disease. We have to change our type of production to be able to have 20% loss. And that is not a cataclysm. If we accept that, maybe we can manage disease better.
Which goes back to let's drink less but better, right? And encourage producers and so that they can be sustainable. There's a cost of production and we need as consumer to accept that, right? So thank you very much. If you have any question, this is a good time. Yes, John? So we were, during the break, some people asked me, when you ask a question, if you could say your name and who you are so that we know who's asking the question, that would be helpful.
Hi, thank you. John Sabo from Toronto Wine Line. A very specific question, you might not have an answer, but a grower, Canadian grower I was speaking to recently mentioned a new formulation of copper for use in vineyards, saponified copper to be specific, that should be able to reduce the amount of copper needed with the same effectiveness by 20% or by 20 times, which would be revolutionary. I mean, to maintain that 4 kilos or less. Has anyone used it? Is it effective? Is
Don't
it available
use it.
only in Europe?
Well, we've tried it. We're a number of people in Quebec. It's called I forget, Cueva. It's called in Canada the commercial name, but I mean, I'm sorry if anyone from, I think it's New Farm who sells it. I hope they're not in the room or listening online, but we're a number of growers who haven't had really good results. On paper, it looks amazing. In real life, we haven't really had it. Then again, I mean, it's a complicated science. Did we use it at exactly the right time? Was the pH of our spray water correct? Did we tank mix with something that shouldn't have been tank mixed? Did we, there's a lot of very fine points that we need to get right to make it work, but it was full of promises and didn't quite deliver for us, at least. But that's one thing. I mean, other products with similar formulations could be interesting, but.
Thank you. Other questions? There's lots of producers in the room. Maybe you have questions for those panelists. Yes. Question here, Lani. Right here.
Hello, my name is Noelia from Chile, from Emiliana Vineyards. And I would like to ask Olivier, because I didn't know that you can use peewee hybrid varieties nowadays. It's allowed in France to make wine with those grape varieties?
La question est, vous avez le droit maintenant d'utiliser des peewee en France, donc peut-être expliquer les appellations ou dans quel contexte c'est permis. You want to take your microphone?
No, an appellation, no, but...
Peewee is not an appellation. It's just like a club. You have cotisation and it's a label. Vous appartenez à ce label, Peewee, et vous participez au concours.
But I mean, if it's possible to use nowadays in France these grape varieties that are resistant to mildew and so on, is it allowed to use it
for
experimental
purposes?
For experimental purposes.
Yes. And there's a big push now in some appellation in small percentage.
That's what I want to know. So you can use them in a small percentage.
Yes, and we'll talk about that with Champagne tomorrow.
Claro. Yeah. And one thought that I want to share with you, because we in Chile are also looking to these hybrids to see, because we are organic and we think about using less inputs, but at the same time, how is the business nowadays, the viñeron and the agricultural producers, they don't get really good money. That's the truth, because the grapes. So probably all of them will be or they will want to change into these varieties to decrease the cost. So the only thing that afrays me or worries me is that we become, no, it's not lazy, the word, we become very simple, everybody is going to be planting these great varieties because they don't have to use sulfur or copper, and we destroy more and more the diversity that we have. That's my only, because I don't know how many of these resistant varieties there are. Maybe are 5, 6, I don't know, or maybe they're going to be 60. You know what I mean? The lack or the loss of the diversity is my think about this issue. Thank you, Olivier.
Thank you.
Thank you. One more question? We have time for one more question. Yeah, there's one in the back over there. Oops.
Marc Théberge, Domaine Bergeville. I have it's more of a comment, but when you come out with new solutions like Lallemand is doing with the Lalvigne, if you could market it as a supplement to the health of the vine instead of a pesticide, it's a lot easier to get it approved for use in Canada.
No, really, I don't know much about the Canadian legislation, sorry. But yeah, for example, in Europe, this Lalvigne botrytis is registered as basic substance. So that make it more easy to get to the market. But I don't know, if there are some equivalent here in Canada. And for example, so this is always difficult to deal with the legislation, because when you, first of all, we are trying to develop solutions that are working. Then we try to find the right place. So sometimes science is a little bit forward compared with the legislation. So it's not always easy to get to the market in the right way. By the way, we are working on that, and for sure. But if you have any advice, we can just take your advice. Thank you.
Do we have time for one more question? I saw someone in the back there that's still raising their hand, I think.
Ok, on va en faire une petite
Yeah,
dernière.
he's been patient, so I think we have to answer the question.
C'était où la question, s'il vous plaît? Merci.
Est-ce que vous avez planté des variétés résistantes pour des questions économiques, environnementales? Pensez-vous que ça va faire des vins aussi bons que les vinifera, ou toutes ces réponses-là sont bonnes?
I'm just going to repeat in English. So the question was, did you plant for economical reason hybrids, and do you think it's going to make good wine?
So my first goal, because I had a professional life before, and for this land, my goal was to keep it very clean, because I live 10 kilometers near, and that was my first goal. But I wanted to make wine, so I choose resistant grapes. It's the first reason. After that, I was expert comptable, accounted. So I think about the economic too. That's the second reply. And so replied, before this morning, I will say to you that I was not sure we are able to convince the customer to drink our wine. But since this morning, I understand that maybe we can. That's Matthieu.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, everyone.